There we go. Okay.
You're on camera now.
Yes. We're all here, so let's do our last week's questions.
Breathe in. And that is.
These were last week's questions.
And I got the answer.
Good evening.
How can I turn it? Yeah, that's what it's 20. I'm just checking. Mine is the answer. Actually, I
Okay, so do you have the questions, last week's questions and the answers? Rachel, did you send the question? You did, okay. So we're going to look to begin with by looking at last week's question sheet and going through the answers. So, did anyone manage to tackle them? Yeah? You did? Okay, you got them all? Excellent, lovely. So, there we go. Okay. So the first question was, give 8 independent reasons why you might not be able to eat a piece of meat. Obviously, the first one is the wrong species, it's pig meat. Second, it didn't have a sugar. Pardon? Right, yes, yeah.
Anyone have any answers? Or this is not a test, it's just sharing with it. Anyone wants to offer anything for the first question? May not be told in the second way.
So the second one, so the first one is the wrong species. Another one, the 8 independent.
Circus and may not have been killed in the
Correct, they didn't have shafita. Third,
Anyone else?
The animal might still be alive.
well, if it's had shafita, it won't be alive anymore. Otherwise, the shofar would have done his job.
There was a cooked
Yes, yeah. Cooked by someone who's not Jewish.
Not kosher, what's killed.
That's right. So after shafita, it was found to be treifa. Okay. And then you can see another, and after you have the meat that is found not to be treifa, it's healthy, then of course what you need to do is to salt it, to remove the blood. But not all of the animal is eaten. So if it's in the hindquarters, we wouldn't be eating it. And as was already mentioned, if it's cooked by a non-Jew. And the final reason is you might just have had a cheese sandwich, okay? And if you've eaten hard cheese, then you've got to wait before you can eat milk. Right, so those are 8 independent reasons why a piece of meat you might not be able to eat a piece of meat. Oh, yeah?
If you just had fish.
If you just had fish,
And you haven't had a drink.
and you haven't had drink. Okay, you're right. Thank you, James. We would go with that. Okay, fine.
with a fish.
Okay, thank you.
Cooked in a non-kosher pot, which I don't know, you mentioned that. I mean,
Yes, and it was not cooked in a non-kosher pot or cooked in milk.
okay, and cooked on Shabbat, but that's always.
Okay, yes, you're quite right. That will be another reason as well. If at the time that you cooked it was the person who cooked it knowingly on Shabbat wouldn't be allowed to eat it. Yes, yeah. Okay, question 2. 4 independent reasons why not be allowed to eat it.
We have another that could be fish bowl, and I was going to say Yom Kippur.
Okay, yes.
There are lots of things.
Lots of things. Okay, we've got to 11 reasons so far. Very good. All right. Next iteration will add that. 4 independent reasons might not be able to eat a piece of cheese. Okay.
Granite.
Right. So in other words, the cheese has got non-kosher ingredients.
So animal rights.
Yeah, and already it does come from animal. from the fourth cup of
Sometimes I see it as vegetable rennet.
Fine, yeah, we'll come to that soon. But yeah, so the first is the wrong species of cheese. So you've had cheese from a non-kosher animal. There is a question: could you really make cheese from a? But they do. They have camel cheese. So it's the wrong kosher animal, or it's got the right species but contains non-kosher ingredients. And so if it's been made with trefa rennet, and even though it's a small amount, nevertheless it's something that's necessary in order to coagulate the milk, and so therefore it doesn't get buttered, it doesn't get nullified. Third, there is a requirement that cheese needs to be made by a Jew, or a Jew needs to be present during the cheese making. And so that's and cheese that would otherwise have kosher ingredients that has not been made by the presence of a Jew is called gavinat akum, non-Jewish cheese. Do you have to use kosher milk? That's a separate question. There are some that go further and have milk that's been supervised, and then the cheese making is supervised. And others just have the cheese supervised from the time of the cheese being made, but they're not necessarily supervised the milk. And you'll sometimes see the distinction on the texture of the cheese where it's mishat haliva or mishat asiya. It has been made, the superstition from the time the cheese making started, or even from the time that the milking started. But at any rate, at the very least, from the time the cheese making has started, then there needs to be Jewish supervision, and that makes it Jewish cheese, kosher cheese, as opposed to gavinat akum, non-kosher, non-Jewish cheese. And so, as I say, all the ingredients, in other words, you can be using vegetarian rennet, but if the cheese making, that is to say the coagulation of the milk, is taking place without Jewish presence, then it will be considered non-Jewish cheese. And the final reason being is that you could have just had a meal. The fourth, we've got to wait now between meat and milk. And the third question. Yes.
Sorry, I absolutely know you can speak about this detail. Is there not a tradition of Jews people eating cheese like a couple of years ago? It's like, what would they use instead of rennet? They use rennet.
We've used rennet for thousands of years.
Oh, sorry, I think I've just misunderstood the points when you made, because you're saying that's from the animal, so it's like mixed in.
No. Okay. You're raising a very good question. Okay. So, how the historic way of making cheese, and indeed the way the best cheeses are made, is with animal rennet, and that comes from the lining of the calf's stomach. Okay. Now, aren't you mixing meat and milk? But the end of the day is you're taking from a kosher animal, and you're taking a very, very small amount, which is really so far removed from being a piece of meat that it could ever be. So that of itself is permitted. Alright? And you're then adding that very small amount to the milk to make it coagulate. And that's historically the way to make cheese.
They used to put the milk into a sack or flask that was made out of the calf's stomach as a container, and the rennet that was in it, that was how they discovered cheese, because the rennet filled it into cheese.
So this is why some kosher cheeses are not vegetarian, because they may still use that tiny bit of.
Well, I mean, I don't know whether
They're not labelled as being vegetarian.
Okay, but then I don't know what vegetarian or vegan requirements are in terms of very small amounts.
Yeah.
So, as I say, that process can be done identically with the chemical enzyme rather than the animal product. But you see, if you're taking the same chemical rennet but from an animal that's not kosher, then you can't use it. So you need to have, for kosher cheese, animal rennet is taken from the stomach of an animal that's had kosher shechita, kosher. If you just go to the regular, abattoir and get the stomach of a non-kosher animal, or an animal that's not had shechita, then you can't use it.
Okay, so you're allowed to mix species.
Pardon?
You're allowed to mix species, like say the non-kosher and you take rennet from another.
Oh yeah. That's not a problem. I mean, you're only taking, you only take a tiny amount that's necessary to activate this chemical process. But as I say, many cheeses today are using vegetarian blend. And so you're sometimes a little bit confusing. You'll see a cheese looks identical, if it's a supermarket that sells kosher food and non-kosher food. You'll see the same brand of cheese, same packaging, and this is kosher, and that's not kosher, this is vegetarian cheese, that's vegetarian cheese. The difference is, there's been a Jewish batch. So there's been a shomer that's gone in and supervised the making of that batch of cheese, and so it's come out with the same sort of packaging. It's got a little kosher label on it as well. But in terms of the company that's doing it, etc., that's what's happened.
Sometimes it has the same packaging, and it has this interesting serving suggestion of serving it with ham.
Does it? Oh, wow. That's quite possible on the Dutch cheeses. No, I would say the Dutch are much more into their cheese than the Brits.
No, there's a raclette that I buy in Kosher Kingdom, and ham or beef, it doesn't really matter.
Please talk. If you see something like that, please draw it to our attention. My very last point today on when we get to the papers for today is do communicate with the KLBD, with the Kashrut organisation, because they say their eyes and ears of the Jewish public. So I've just seen this in Kosher Kingdom, I've just seen this on the supermarket, etc. And they use that information all the time.
Well, I wasn't confused by
No, okay. There is an active Facebook group as well, and information is shared very quickly. The final question, the penultimate question last week was 3 reasons why a piece of fruit might not be permitted. And so, one is bugs, it's infested. And then we had 2 other reasons, one orla and one tedel. So orla is the fruit of the first 3 years, okay? And second, if it's in Israel and it's the produce of the land of Israel, then tithing needs to take place, and so that needs to happen. If it's not been tithed, then one wouldn't be allowed to eat it. So those are things that pertain in Israel. Okay, so that was. It's just fruit trees.
It's just fruit trees, and the demarcation of fruit and vegetable is slightly different in Jewish law than it is as we think about it. You would think of avocado as a vegetable, but it's actually fruit. In Jewish law, a plant or a tree that stays up all year round is considered a tree. So strawberries, although we're thinking of fruit, are the brachayas hadamah, and they're a vegetable. But, they come in that category. So when it comes to banana, you think of it as a fruit, but banana plant is and regrows every year. So that again, we're familiar with the bracha hadamah and banana, but it wouldn't be subject to orla.
Fine. Okay.
Because it's.
I'll just reiterate what Rachel said for Diane. We didn't hear that.
Yes.
So essentially, we're just saying the definition of a fruit is something from halakhic purposes that remains throughout the year, and it's the fruit of that type of species that you have to be careful for the first 3 years. Whereas, like a banana is technically a plant as far as Jewish law is concerned, because it disappears in the winter. Okay. There also is Caroline here. She's emailed some questions.
No, she isn't. She's anthropology.
Fine. Okay, so she asked me some questions, but I did email. We'll catch up the other issues later. All right. So now let's go to our text.
What was the awareness of food allergies from the bearing?
Oh yes, you're right. So we did miss out one. The final question: does our greater awareness of food allergies have any bearing on understanding and explaining kashrut? What do you think? You don't think so?
It's not so systematic. No.
Any thought?
So it makes me look at the ingredients a lot more in the same way I would when somebody has allergies.
Yeah.
And especially now that I see all these E numbers on the list.
Yeah. I mean,
I think last week we talked about utensils.
that's the point Rachel made about last week about utensils. And second, people are sometimes when explaining kashrut, you are now hypersensitive, certainly in schools, peanuts, etc., be very careful. You won't want to offend anybody. And in the same way, if people are particular about kashrut, in the same way, we wouldn't want to offend them and give them something if they're sensitive to gluten or if they're sensitive to peanuts. So, at the very least, kashrut should be respected in that way. But even if a person may not believe it themselves, if their good friend is particular about the laws of kashrut, we should be at least as sensitive to their needs as we would if they were gluten sensitive, if they were peanut sensitive as well. So in that sense, we appreciate that in society today there can be a sensitivity to certain areas of food ingestion, and kashrut at the very least it can be seen along those lines.
One of the things that we're very comfortable with are physical sensitivities that someone can have a reaction to. But we understand that we have a spiritual sensitivity as well, and that we are sensitive to food which is not kasher. It's not good for us spiritually, and that can be respected.
Yes. I mean, the Talmud uses the phrase "the tamtemet halev." It clogs up your spiritual heart arteries. Okay, there are things that clog up your physical arteries. But the tamtemet halev, it clogs up your heart in a spiritual sense by eating non-kosher food. Okay, so let's now move to the text from session 2. In the supermarket, why can't I just trust the label? So the first thing to realise, of course, there's a big difference between home cooking and commercial manufacture. If you're cooking at home, you know what you're doing. You're taking the flour, you're making your cake, waters, eggs, sugar, etc. You know what you're doing. When something is done on an industrial scale, there are so many things that are taking place. We just may not be familiar with what's taking place in the factory, and therefore things can be happening that could have kashrut implications of which we are unaware. And at the same time, the lots of things that are being done industrially are using ingredients that, even though they may be listed on the packet, we just may not appreciate what they are. And so, what I hope to be able to do as a result of this session is, whilst I've called it "Why Can't I Just Trust the Label," is to give you a greater awareness of what that label might actually mean. We'll just look at it in a rather casual way, but once you know to recognise a label quite discerningly, then there can be a lot of clues in the label itself. They may not have all the information, but we need to be able to investigate as much as we can. And so, if you see the phrase "natural ingredients," well, that sounds very healthy, doesn't it? Natural ingredients. Well, did you know that natural ingredients can include meat? Meat is natural. Include insects, they're natural. So natural just simply means comes from nature. Let's see the EU regulation. The term natural is describe a flavour that may be a substance derived directly from animal or vegetable material. And the FDA said a substance extracted, distilled, or suitably derived from natural sources like plants, fruits, herbs, veggies, barks, etc., animals, meat, dairy products, etc., fire method of heating, etc. So natural covers a wide range of things. You may think natural, it's healthy, it's just giving you, there are so many sort of euphemisms in the food industry that we'll want to use an unthreatening phrase that sits well with the consumer. So the word natural has a lovely resonance to it, but as I say, it covers lots of things. And so there are lots of terms that we may feel and think are a little innocuous, but once we start to think about them, actually cover a lot more material. So edible fat, edible oil, fish oil, if you see that as an ingredient, then you need to be cautious because you don't know the source where it's come from. Fish oil, is it a kosher fish? If it's edible fat, is the source kosher fat or non-kosher fat? Similarly, oil, has the oil been derived from a kosher source or a non-kosher source? And then similarly, things like gelatin, glycerine, glycerides, polysorbates, stearates, diacetyl, and triacetin. If you see any of those items, again, be cautious because these can be of animal derived, and therefore they should be avoided. Similarly, casein, milk, proteins, and the manufacturing process is similar to that of cheese. and therefore casein is only kosher when made synthetically or under rabbinical supervision. So again, that's something to be aware of.
That would apply to the category above, the gelatins, and then there's kosher
Yes,
gelatin.
there is kosher gelatin.
And there's also fish gelatin. There's different kinds of kosher gelatin. So there are kosher alternatives to most of these things. Just if you don't know what they are.
Sure. I mean, gelatin is derived from the bones and other tissue of animals, fish, and is used in many applications. Forms the basis of marshmallows and gelatine desserts. Finds its way into yogurt and ice cream, and into children's sweets as well. And so, unless you are aware of that, then you may not be aware. So it's an animal protein made from collagen, the connective tissue found in tendons, bones, and skins. And by cooking those things, then some of the collagen is extracted from the meat and dissolves in the broth. You see that property when you make like gefilte fish, when the collagens come out and things gel in that way. So, and as we said here, glycerine in casein milk solids, balsamic vinegar, wine, and brandy. And so many ingredients of wine render a product non-kosher unless the product is manufactured under medical supervision. And vinegar of unspecified source may be of wine origin. And so if you're using a wine vinegar, then it's got to be a kosher wine vinegar. And someone's mentioned previously around the table here, if you go to a place like Kosher King, not advocating that them in any special way, but all their products are actually under supervision. We have a London Bethlehem Shoma that regularly patrols the shelves at Kosher King, just checking that everything is there under supervision. Whereas other kosher shops will sort of do their very best to make sure that everything in stock is okay, Kosher Kingdom goes a stage further and actually employs a Bethlehem Shoma to check all its stock on a regular basis.
How about spirit vinegar? That sometimes
Malt
says
vinegar, that kind of thing.
It depends. That sometimes they will check with the manufacturer of what they're using. So it might say spirit vinegar. I went around.
So like for example, Heinz ketchup used to be clear spirit vinegar, but as I say, in that case, a spirit-made vinegar is made from molasses. So sometimes spirit vinegar can be okay, and sometimes not. So you would need to check.
So I just looked at two, just because Worcestershire sauce came up. So I went and had a look, and if you have a look at Liam Perrin's Worcestershire sauce as a KLBD label on it. Tesco's own brand is almost identical ingredients, but it's not kosher. So you just need to know, just the fact that it said malt vinegar and it's from barley does not tell you what it is. I'm not actually sure which ingredients it is. That in the Tesco's one, but Tesco's comes up as non-kosher, and that Liam Perrin one is kosher.
So those of you back on Zoom, Rachel was just saying that the Worcestershire sauce, one variety, Liam Perrin has a KLBD, whereas Tesco, which looks similar, seems to have the same ingredients on the label, nevertheless that's not okay.
So what happens, for example, with the latest crisis of Bendix?
We'll come to that, okay? We'll leave Bendix to the end.
Go on.
About FS using sort of extra amounts of time. Who pays to get that kind of investigation done and to get the extra audits?
Right, okay, I'll come to that point later on as well, okay?
Because, I don't know, they're all made in the same factory, they have paid for that and they...
Right. So a question's been asked about a product which has a label and how does that happen, what's the process, who pays for it. We'll come to that as well, okay? So there we have further items. If you see shortening are cooking fats and could contain animal fats. Around page 2. Rennet, so we did start to discuss this before. Rennet is used in cheese manufacture as a clotting agent. Rennet is a concentrated extract of the rinsing enzyme obtained from either calves or adult cattle. And it's one of the calves, the kosher animal's got 4 stomachs, and this comes from the 4th stomach. as I say. So if you're using the animal version, then it has to be an animal that's been slaughtered with the proper shechita. And if you're using a chemical rennet, and then, as I say, for cheese making, it needs to be done under supervision. Okay, so that's section 3, food additives. Although there is an overlap, food additives are distinct from food ingredients. So here's the WHO guidelines, which say food additives are substances primarily added to processed food or other foods on an industrial scale for technical purposes, e.g. to improve safety, increase the amount of time a food can be stored, or modify sensory properties of food, make it look prettier, etc., more shiny, etc. Food additives are substances not normally consumed as food by themselves, not normally used as typical ingredients of food. Most minimally processed and unprocessed foods do not contain food additives. And so, if you're buying a yogurt, it's got a 3-month, as it were, shelf life, just be realising lots of additives, as opposed to the yogurt that's only got a sort of 3-day or a 6-day shelf life. So, as I say, the additives are there to add, to make it like, and like, for example, supermarket bread, which will have will remain fresh for a couple of weeks. There are additives in it, as well as you know, you make a regular loaf, within a couple of days it's no longer fresh. So that's the process. Now, again, industrially, what has happened in the European Union, in order to make things more streamlined, they came up with what's known as E numbers, and we use them in the UK as well. So E number means Europe numbers, and it's one can demystify it. There are different categories. E100 to 190 are colours. The next batch are preservatives. The next batch are antioxidants, acidity regulators. The next batch are thickeners, stablers, and emulsifiers. Then you've got acidity regulators, anti-caking agents. Then flavour enhancers, antibiotics. These are the added to our food, and miscellaneous and additional chemicals. And so the KLBD periodically updates guidance on the listed items, and so the product shouldn't be used unless it's been legally approved. And so these are the problematic E numbers, and we won't test them on, but these are the ones that are problematic if you were to see them. And we go into a few of them. So next page, what might you be eating? So Rachel, would you like to perhaps tell us a little bit about the next E120?
So E120 is cochineal, carminic acid. In makeup, we find it is naturally red. Right, it's completely natural. It's pure insect. As when I was a kid, everybody would keep the red one in the Smarties, and you couldn't keep the red one in the gumdrops, and if the red one wasn't natural, you couldn't have it squashed up because we all knew that wasn't true. We had this, there wasn't there was almost no kosher confectionery at all with a name on it, but there were lists of foods that were known to be okay, and it was all the red ones you couldn't have. So the truth is, it was a cochineal beetle, and I got very interested in this because one summer we were in Spain, and from our villa in Spain, one of the hillsides was full of cactus that looked really decayed and regular. There was this white fluffy stuff all over them, and it really looked very sad. And I asked the owner of the villa, what is that? And he said, he's in his Spanish, he said to me what I understood was cochineal beetle. He said he used to use them, they used to harvest the dye from them, but nowadays nobody bothers them. So I looked into this a little bit, and cochineal was originally, it grows on prickly pear or other cacti. It was known by the Aztecs way back when, the brightly coloured weavings that were associated with Aztec had that bright red, and when the Spanish invasion, they stole this, they took over the production, and they brought the cochineal beetle back to Europe.
You can't hear.
I'll come down the other side.
You can't hear Rachel's talk on cochineal beetle.
That's exactly what I'm
Need to be over here. Okay.
I just
So they took these beetles, brought them to Spain, and they were around Europe, and they controlled, because these colours were very precious. Shortly after that, the British started to have red coats, the British military, that's where the red came from. The Pope changed his colours from purple to red, because this was really expensive. And these beetles, what happens is they cluster on the pad of the cactus, they wrap they lay their eggs there, they become nymphs. The nymphs have this white fluffy stuff that they wrap around themselves, and if you scratch one of those white looking things, dark red pours out. And in order to harvest them, they're harvested very carefully by how they're brushed off the cactus, they're dried out, and then they're weighed. And it's a little bit like saffron. It's hand done, it's very delicate, and you need a huge amount of them. They're dried, and then they're sold, and in order to make cochineal or carmine, it's the carminic acid which beetles have to ward off predators. You pulverize them, and you make them into a powder, and that's what goes, and you cook it either way, and that's what goes. So the red colour in cochineal is literally, it's pulverized beetles. There's no other way. However, in the 1900s it became very popular, and then it phased out. Once they started to make synthetic dyes, which were very stable and were much, much easier to produce, almost overnight that production of cochineal went out the window, because this was much more marketable, it was much cheaper, it was done by machinery, and they stopped using cochineal, which is why this guy said to us they don't bother harvesting it anymore. But that started again in the late 1990s, when people started to be worried about the carcinogenic effect of some of these chemicals and whether they were safe, and people were looking at more natural things, and insects are natural. So that's why they've started doing this all over again, and the cochineal is used quite a lot as a red food coloring.
So
that's the story.
E120, avoid it, or carmine?
If you see carmine acid,
Carminic acid,
or
avoid it.
yeah, that's good.
Right. So then you get to E42, it's glycerol, and it occurs in many plants, but it's also a byproduct of the fatty acid industry, and it's used quite widely. So that's one to avoid. And then the emulsifiers and stabilizers, again derived by fatty acids, and emulsifiers play an important part of the food industry, because the manufacture of many foodstuffs involves the formation and stability of the emulsion, which is like an oil and water. An emulsifier aids the mixing of these two liquids to form one complete product, like mayonnaise. And so these contain emulsifiers, and therefore if the emulsifier is mentioned as being present, then that needs to be avoided. You were going to add also...
Yes, I was going to talk about the glycerol.
Yeah.
Yes, glycerol. So anyone know about the brown sugar dramas? Brown sugar, anything wrong with brown sugar? Well, if you look at Tesco's brown sugar, all its brown sugar, it's got, it says humectant glycerol. And if you go on the KLBD app or on the thing, it's actually not kosher. Most Tate and Lyle is, most of them are, I think, I better get the list of them, but there's a number, do you just check it? I didn't write them down. But Tesco's, who would have thought the brown sugar would have any problem with it? It says 100% sugar, but if you look on the side, it actually says, glycerol. It says as a humectant.
Brown sugar.
Brown sugar. So
Asda, no.
Asda, no.
Aldi, yes.
Aldi's okay.
But it's got a star. It says it's okay.
So I just say these things are we don't quite.
Co-op is okay. Bennington's is okay. La Carouche, that's fancy. And then down here, Tesco's is no.
Yeah.
Waitrose is fine.
Yeah.
Tate and Lyle is fine. Silver Spoon is fine. Sainsbury's is fine.
Yeah, it's just one of those that was a bit shocking because you would not have expected that at all.
So there we are. Brown
Just
sugar.
to say, I was looking at malt vinegar. The only malt vinegar that's fine on this list, there's no no's, but the only ones that are definite yeses is Sarson's.
Okay.
So, I know, but that's where you have to be careful not to buy shop home brands.
Sure. So from apart from glycerol, emulsifiers, and then E542 is bone phosphate. Okay, that we will appreciate that has been a problem. Stearic acid as well is a product of animals, and magnesium stearate, again from stearic acid, which is used as an anti-caking or release agent. And so this we're going to come to as well. Now, these are going to be, we've thus far considered the ingredients. Things you'll see as an E number, oh, that's a problematic one, I'll avoid it. But then there are categories of items that can be a problem for kashrus, but are not listed. Okay? So this is item number 5. Items that are not required to be listed. For example, release agents. So in the commercial manufacture of foods, you'll be wanting your item to fall neatly off the conveyor belt into where it has its next to go. Or you'll be making an item in the mould, and you'll be tipping out of the mould, and for speed of production, we use release agents in order to literally grease the process. Interestingly, the word grease historically implied animal fat, as it comes from the Latin word crassus, meaning fat, or Danish gris is a pig, whereas oil historically implied an olive. From the Greek word for oil is elion, from which you get the word olive. Any form of Greek release agent, you have to ensure that this is in fact of kosher origin. So release agents are used to help release the item for its moulding or packaging, baking trays and conveyor belts, and needs to be kosher, because your food is going to be absorbing some of the nature of that release agent, and therefore you need to ensure that's okay. Your machinery is going to be lubricated. Again, it's possible that could affect the item. And then you've got anti-foams, free flow, and anti-caking agents. Now, I'll give you an example here. This Schwartz garlic salt is not kosher. And I went onto a couple of websites, and not every website lists the anti-caking agent. What is an anti-caking agent? An anti-caking agent is something that prevents an item clogging up. And so there's a difference between a garlic salt and a garlic powder. Garlic powder is simply sort of powdered garlic, okay, dried and powdered. Whereas a garlic salt is you'll take that item, mix it with some table salt, and then mix it as well with an anti-caking agent so that your mixture will then flow. You want to take your salt cellar, or your garlic salt cellar or celery salt cellar, and want it to flow neatly rather than get clogging up the holes. You have to find the pick behind me. So for something to flow properly, they use anti-caking agents, and anti-caking agents can be of non-kosher origin, but they're not ingredients, and so they're not always listed, which is why they say we've got our kashrut guides.
Onion soup as well.
Yeah. Yes. And then similarly, carrot. So yes, yeah.
Is that something to do? Is like more like the item itself and the percentage of that lubricant or something within the product that is manufactured? Because my question comes because I study in cosmetic industry.
Yes.
The manufacturers, they are not obligated to disclose all the ingredients.
Yeah.
They produce cancer or they are mutagenic if they are coming less than 0.25%.
Right.
And they are not obligated to use this kind of ingredients. It's something similar with the
Yes, well, as I say, it's like the food additives, food ingredients you have to list. But things that are simply part of the machinery, they're not required to list. And so a release agent they're not adding it to the bun. But simply the old-fashioned release agent was like lard. You line your baking tin, and so with a bit of so the item comes nicely, it doesn't stick to the pan. And when you're doing that industrially, you want to ensure that the item you bake will come neatly off the baking pan onto the conveyor belt. And so those aren't ingredients, so they don't have to. But if you've got a hot piece of dough, then it's going to absorb what's there. Yeah, pleasure. So then we come to the next item, method of production. So you may have completely kosher ingredients, but the plant or machinery may be shared with other non-kosher products. And when that's the case, it's the equivalent in the kitchen of taking a non-kosher pot and cooking your chicken in it, or taking the milk pot and putting meat in it. So if you're using a non-kosher pot, Rachel, I think you've got some examples to share with us here.
So anyone know about Ella's Kitchen, the pouches? The little pouches of baby food. Right, if you went through the list of just they've got some pure fruit, they've got some pure vegetables, they've got mixed fruits and vegetables. There's like one that's carrots, and peas, and it's pure peas and pure carrots. They also sell for a few months old and for 1 year old. But in the pouch, I'm quite taken with this. They sell cottage pie, they sell lamb roast, the pouch to drink. They sell pulled pork, chicken roast dinner, cheesy pie. They've got all kinds of main course things in these little pouches, and it's quite random obviously the pork and the cheese and the roast lamb and the roast chicken are all on the same plan, and so are some of the vegetables. So carrots and peas, which are pure carrots and pure peas, are cooked on the same line as some of these other things. So you're actually you're feeding your child serious trait. It's mixtures of meat and milk and pork and whatever, without even knowing it's not on the ingredients. Yes.
Can I say, when you're not one that's just like a vegetable pouch, surely between doing the cottage pie and doing the vegetarian one, they would have cleaned.
Yes. So good question. It's an excellent question.
Like a trace, right? So it could be like
yeah. So that's an excellent question. So for example, Marigold, as the illustration here, Marigold vegan cubes are made on the same plant as their meat cubes, and so these aren't supervised. But they're not kosher. Sorry, they're not kosher. But sometimes there is sufficient cleaning. So there's always cleaning to a degree, but the amount of cleaning has to be equivalent to what we call a kashrut process. That then you're able to have an item that's suitable to be eaten. And so one example which it does work is in Walker's crisps. So the way that the crisps are being made is you've got your crisps that are in a drum, and then they spray flavours onto it. And so it again depends on the order which is done. So they're cleaning the drum first, and then they'll do the plain crisps. And then after that, they'll do the flavoured crisps. And so the ones that are coming out from the first batch, which are the plain crisps, are okay. But then other flavours are being done, which could be non-kosher ones, the meat ones, and other ones as well. So a lot will depend on the cleaning process. It's sometimes okay, but that's where one needs to know what's going on in the food industry to be able to make an educated judgment on that. Now, one classic example, historically, which the Jewish community had a lot of challenges with, was Marmite. So, Marmite is yeast extract. What's wrong with Marmite? However, the manufacturers were making it on the same plant as Bovril. So, and for and Bob Robert is meat based. And for years, the Beth Din tried its level best to ensure that Marmite could be kosher for the Jewish community. Because how can the English not enjoy a Marmite sandwich? Though some people hate Marmite and some people love it. But it got to a point when they were actually using the same steam. And we managed to, our investigations were for a long while that they were keeping the steam sources separate. And then we saw it was the same steam that was being used for the meat production was then going into the Marmite production as well. So even though the plants were separate parts of the machinery, the Marmite and the Bovril, nevertheless the same steam was being circulated for them. So at that point we said Marmite was no longer kosher. You can get small jars of Marmite which are imported from South Africa, which has a separate production. They're not allowed to import large jars. That's the
I would just say about of course they'll clean it so that there's no flavour, but if pork was cooked in a pot and you washed it, it's still you couldn't then cook some cashew in it. You'd have to cashew it. There's a much more robust system that's needed.
Right. So then you come. I've got a copy of the kosher diet on the other end. So anyway, so when we come to the London Beth Din Kashrut guide, and we've tried our best here to make Kashrut as straightforward for the community as possible. And the Kashrut standards exist at 3 distinct levels. So first, the supervised products. And that is to say, you've got a Kashrut supervisor that goes into the factory, is there when the stuff is being manufactured, and will stick his label, stick her label on it at the end, that's that. And of course, for things like matzah, that's what's happening, for things that's necessary. And the foods we're eating for Pesach will have that level of supervision. But then we have another level down, and that's called certified products. And that's where the Kashrut division is engaging in correspondence with food companies and say, you manufacture this particular variety of Worcestershire sauce, and we very much like to have the Jewish community eat it. Can we enter into an agreement with you that you'll keep this particular formulation and process of manufacture, and we enter into a license agreement that they're not going to change it without consulting us. And in exchange for that, we give them a logo that they can put on their packaging. Obviously wants to make logos sort of not too obtrusive, so other consumers aren't put off. But in that way, as I say, there's a license agreement that there is a logo on this item, and we know they're not going to change the process of manufacture. Sometimes, if they, we employ food scientists in London who have a wide knowledge of the food industry and are following all the trade magazines that the new processes are coming out. You have to be well up, and one of our guys is a world expert on whiskey manufacture. He knows everything there is to know about the process of making whiskeys, and that's a separate subject for another occasion. But as I say, that level of certification is there, and that's what you see the logo on the product. Then there's a third level, what's called an approved product. So an approved product, you'll find lots of items in this Kashrut guide that you'll be there in the supermarket, which we say are okay to eat, but there's no logo on it. So what's happened? So the food scientists have been in touch with the company. They're aware of what's happening. A visit has been made to the factory, and we're aware of what's going on, and we feel confident enough of our knowledge of food science, of what's happening, and how responsible people who are running that factory, that we can say this is okay. So it's, as I say, it's a product that's approved. One other Kashrut authority in the world that does that is the Paris Beth Din, but most others don't. So in Israel, or in America, for example, it's either with a Heksha, or it's got an OU sticker on it, and that's like the equivalent of our certified level. but our approved level, where it doesn't have any sort of item on it, on any sort of label on it, but we're saying it's okay, that's as a result of the fact that we are aware of what's going on, we're confident that this is okay, and every so often there will be updates that it's now come to our attention that the formulation of this product has changed and it's removed from the approved list, or from being Power it's now milky, for example. But obviously, you know, we will have built-in safety mechanisms that we to ensure that we're not going to cause the community to really sort of trape up their pots, as it were. And so, you know, there will be safety mechanisms built around it. And that, on that, for that very reason, if anything, everyone ever makes a mistake and has used something which they see afterwards, oh, it says it's not good, contact me, because there could be that it wasn't 100% that it was not kosher, we were just Kashrut concerned, and there may be room for manoeuvre. It's always worth asking the Shaila. But as I say, this guide, and in fact it's worth having the hard copy, although all of the information is there on the app, but it's so much more difficult to read all the small print, and you can, well, this is small print. But there's lots of very helpful summaries.
It explains the things as well.
Yeah, so you know, I'm just looking at soft drinks. All soft drinks are permitted unless they contain grape juice or non-permitted E-numbers. Drinks containing unspecified fruit extract, fruit sugar, or natural sweeteners should be avoided unless approved, as those can be derived from grape. So if it says natural fruit, you know, natural fruits could include grape, as well as blueberries and other things. Okay. Smoothies often contain grape juice, and thus even varieties not containing grape juice may be problematic due to shared use of equipment. Some brands of pineapple and coconut juice contain milk, and so you're advised to check the ingredients, declaration, etc. So it just gives you a little summary on each section, which is very helpful.
Can I just come in on that? There are lots of confusing things. One thing that the person that we spoke to in the Kashrut department mentioned, things that are unexpected, is everybody knows Robinson's blackcurrant and apple, and you know most kids will be drinking that. And all of those drinks are okay, except for their double concentrated blackcurrants with no sugar added, and that one has actually got grape juice in it. And if you look on the bottle,
Grape juice.
It's got grape juice. If you look on the bottle, it says so, but every other Robinson's drink is okay, so it wouldn't occur to you to think that. Another one is innocent,
Yeah.
the orange juice, and it's got traces of saying it's not kosher. It says 100% orange juice, and it's not kosher. We've tripped up on that a few times. So that innocent is not as innocent as it looks. And also another, yes, Del Monte, they will have the mango smoothies, the mango smoothie, they're a nice pot thing. They're fine, but their 100% orange juice ice lobby is not kosher. So you really have to look. And if you're not sure, check on the guide. And there is, I will just mention it now, there is they have a KLBD Facebook group, which is amazing. And they will, you just type in the question, I'll tell you, I've seen this in the supermarket, or is this okay? And they'll get back to you very promptly, sometimes right away, if they can. It's even after hours. And they'll offer you a substitution. They might say, this is what I say, but there's something very similar, which is okay. So it's a really good thing to be part of. It's very helpful.
Yeah, you'll just see underneath there, it's just a sample of a questionnaire which we'll be sending out to companies. Processing aids used, ingredients are the animal, dairy, cheese, fish, insect or grape origin, shared equipment with animal, dairy, cheese, fish, insect or grape, production temperature, what the cleaning temperatures are, detergents used, produced on the same day as dairy, same day as non-kosher. And so, you know, we'll be getting that information from them, and then, you know, the food scientists will write up the report, present it to the rabbis, and then be giving the classification, etc.
Why is temperature an important criteria?
because below a certain temperature, the fact that something is in an equipment won't make it, it won't be absorbed into the walls of the equipment. Right? So just like washing up, like someone might say to me, you know, some milk went into one of my meaty cups. So the first thing I say, well, was it hot or cold? How long was it there? But if it was cold, then there wouldn't be a problem. Just okay, rinse it out, it's fine. So as I say, temperature is significant. Again, length of time. So all these will be criteria. And at the end of the day, if you notice something, let KLBD know, and they say the public are their best allies in maintaining Kashrut standards. Okay, so that's a summary of our issues for today. We have some questions.
Bendix.
Oh, Bendix, yes, Bendix.
The line in the KLBD department, they say they need a special hotline. When you call them, they press one for Bendix and one for everything else.
It's a puzzle. So Bendix is a brand of a non-Jewish brand of chocolate that manufactures these parabens, which are very popular with all the different varieties. We realised something was happening with Bendix over a year or more than a year ago, when our favourite one in the Mint Crisp seems to be getting less and less available.
In each box.
In each box. What's going on? Why are they not producing anymore? And Bendix has a logo from the London Left In. So in other words, we've been in touch with them, and they were happy to have a license with us and have that formulation. And then back in the summer, the company was taken over, I think, by a German company, and then they said, we've decided we're going to relinquish the logo. We said, well, why? Is there anything we can do? No, and they didn't want to engage with us. So we have no idea why, and we even went behind their backs and looked at the factory, and we can't see any reason why not. But as I say, it's a puzzle. So we have no idea why they wanted to relinquish their logo. But as I say, that's.
But you can buy Bendix in Kosher Kingdom without the logo.
Well, there's still current stock
Yes.
available. They stopped the logo, and then the first thing they stopped the logo, and then they said they wanted it. They weren't prepared to engage with us anymore.
They're going to stop that production.
So if we buy it in Kosher Kingdom, we're safe.
Yes, okay. Yes.
If we buy it somewhere else, it's you duck
No,
out.
you don't know. But at the moment, what you can get in Kosher Kingdom is still okay. Yes.
Business and make a new version of it.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Someone has to
There was a niche market for Saturday.
Yes. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
But they did, because people were encouraged. People were encouraged to write to the company, and a few people told me that they did, and the email they got back is that we're very disappointed. We've been happy to serve the Jewish community for X amount of years, and we're very disappointed that we're not going to be able to continue doing so.
Yeah. They said until March.
That's it, yeah.
So, you know.
We don't know.
Stop.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, we have some review questions that we'll summarise. Summarise these so you can do that. Any queries from you guys at home? No? Okay.
After all it's sold by this, except it's gone.
No. Well, we weren't charging them. We said you could have it without charge, we said. They still didn't want to engage.
Very anticipating.
You know, you may think it's since October 7th. It's not. This was already back in the summer that they decided, for whatever company policy, they decided not to.
Or when their sales drop off the cliff.
Yes.
We're not enough. There's not enough of us.
Yes.
In London.
This one. You should be able to get one from almost kosher shops.
All the
If
bookshops.
you're interested, we could bring some in next week.
If you're interested, I'll bring it back up.
It's on the website and they list one stock list.
Pardon?
Really? What? Yeah. Yeah, we can bring some in.
I'll bring some in next week. Okay.
If anyone's interested, there's an article on
I know that's donation to the school.
I still don't understand. Why are coming not
Yes,
because this is what I know you can't have it when she's written it. Hold on. This is your yes, and that is the only non-permitted colour. Non-permitted, okay. So it's not permitted. I've got it out.
You could.
Don't just. Depends how you kiss us. Yes. Fine. Okay. Yeah.
Bye, Deanne.
You see, next week I'm coming.
Pleasure.
Bye.
See you.
Next week when you're not here.
And I'm 2 weeks' time, Rachel, two weeks' time, I've got, yes, you break up,
We have to work, we might need
to switch a date or so. I've got to go to Windsor Castle, so. To representing the Chief Rabbi's office as an interfaith event, whereas an overnight stay at Windsor Castle. So,
you're having a sleepover.
Hopefully the king will be well.
I've got a play date. Dan Brimstone, when I was representing the Shore at the United Synodal Council, when I was representing the Shore at the United Synodal Council meeting, the chaplain, I honestly can't remember his name, who runs the KL meeting, he gave the most fantastic presentation. As they travel around the world, go to their remote places, and I just wonder whether he would come in to send us his video.
yes, there's certainly there's a road show.
Yes, it's absolutely extraordinary the depths that they go to.
Yeah. Do we have the question sheets? Rachel, do you have the question sheets for today?
I thought you meant the tax should have run translated. I'm not
No, it's
just these questions.
Not gonna got some doodles.
I must say, I find the phone app.
Yes.
Except you can't get a signal in Kosher Kingdom, so you just have to assume everything's. It's possible in Kosher Kingdom to get a signal.
Especially by the coffee.
I think we need to tell them. We need to tell them that.
Oh, really? Buy the coffee.
I just appeared.
No. So, I mean, at the end of the day, they are doing their best, of course. They've not got outside supervisors.
Come online.
So, I mean, I would imagine things like caves. Enough people are shopping there to somewhat notice. But in Kosher Kingdom, very occasionally, happened twice. I've spotted something. I've called the supervisor and said, I'm with removal. So you have to know exactly what you're looking for, etc. Food science is now so you need to be really right on it to know where the problems are.
I've got to be a bit more. Bye. I'm going to be a bit more cautious.
On the list of things, so next week was this list, and then the week after is nothing. I guess it's half down, and then we'll do one after that.
Well, we get the week.
I haven't.
That's not a job for us.
I haven't looked at the box of 30,000.
That would be amazing.
So we have a wide knowledge.
Di said when they talk about eggs, one of his nephews runs a egg
Thank you very much for giving me my homework. Thank you very much.
And you've decided to step down.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I tell you why. Whether stay or don't stay, you stay Yes.
So,
Okay, fine.
can I have a coffee with you?
Well, you were, I'd love to, and then we can talk about it. This is, I don't know. If you're so, I would love to be interested, I'd love to tell you all about it. It is not. But I just want to make it point. It's an option whether you want to stay. It's an option.
Which will you understand? Union away. It's the second one. I've got your email. I email you in the morning.
I'm available a lot. I'm very flexible in my time table. Are you around during the day?
I'm around here. Different days, different times. Like, Wednesdays is always a good day for me. Thursday afternoon. Just depends, different days, different times. Monday to Sunday.
What about Friday?
Friday, it's a very relaxed time.
I'm around a lot because first of all, I like to go at 6. I do my first thing. I go swimming early in the morning. I'm very, I watch that important over to work.
It's away this Friday.
I see you on Friday.
Where's your girl?
Hands.
So can we do it about 11?
11:15.
Oh, even better. 11:30?
Even better.
11:30 or even 12?
Oh, stop it. 11:30.
11:30 at Palace. I'll see you then. Perfect. See you, Marina.
Well, there you go. Somebody's gloves. Where's that chappie?
Someone's left.
I think it's that poor chap, that poor man.
I assume there is.
Which weekend? Down in Scotland, when we're going to 13th of February, it's 2 weeks time. That's fine. You are funny.
I doubt it. He's probably recuperating elsewhere. Is this James?
I don't think there's a chap here.
The easiest thing to do is to have another one on the email. Pleasure.
I'm very sorry this is like a very serious but this is like
So there'll also be tins on into the factory and that sort of thing.
yeah.
Yes. Right.
Thank you very much.
night. Thank you, President.